On 6th August, the US military decimated Hiroshima with an atom bomb. On that day, people in Japan and all over the world will look back at history and criticize America. They will pay tribute to the dead and soon after will move on in life. The problem is, no one has the basic sense or the guts to call the atomic bombings terrorist attacks. The nuclear attacks caused far bigger casualties and devastation than all the other terrorist attacks that we know of, such as the 9/11 attacks in the US. But why don't we ever link Hiroshima and Nagasaki to terrorism? Let's try to find the answer. Thanks for tuning in. This is Nadim. You're watching Empire Diaries. On August 6th and 9th in 1945, the Pentagon dropped atom bombs in Japan and shocked the planet. A uranium bomb fell on Hiroshima and a plutonium bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The two cities were almost wiped out. The terror attacks killed at least 230,000 people over the next few months. The actual figure could be much higher, and there were thousands of deaths due to radioactivity from the bombs. In 12,000 years of civilization, it's the only episode of terrorists dropping atom bombs on civilian populations. As we observe Hiroshima Day, we ask everyone a simple question. Why are the Hiroshima Nagasaki attacks always called bombings? Why are they never seen as acts of terrorism? Most people you know criticize the US for dropping atom bombs on a faraway nation. Yet none of them see the US military like they see Al-Qaeda, Khalistanis, Maoist guerrillas, Islamic State, Lashkar, Tamil Tigers, Hamas and so on. Why do the Pentagon's criminal acts in Japan get the special privilege of not being called terror attacks? Is it because the terrorists in this case were American nationals? Is it because the terrorist commander who ordered the attacks was an American president? It was Harry Truman who ordered the nuclear attacks.
An American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction.
The bombings were done by the US military with scientific support from the British and Canadian governments. Remember Robert Oppenheimer's Manhattan Project? It was a stylish name for what was actually a terrorism project. An Anglo-American project to build atom bombs that could terrorize and wipe out populations. Just like it happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Let's try to understand why we don't see the Japan attacks as terrorism. It is said that whatever we think is a result of what our environment wants us to think. If you properly study the freely available sources of information on the Japan attacks, you will get the answer. What are the popular information sources we rely on? There's television, social media, newspapers, magazines, schools, universities, research bodies, bookshops, libraries, government spokespersons, movies, documentaries, online series, clubhouses, and even your next door neighbors. All of them, all the time, consistently use the term Hiroshima Nagasaki bombings. They never use the term terrorism. We ran a Google search of the term Hiroshima and Nagasaki to see what shows up. We also visited a number of popular information domains and checked out the exact words they use to describe the attacks. We found a consistent pattern. From popular websites like Wikipedia to small and unknown websites, no one links the Hiroshima-Nagasaki nuclear attacks with terrorism. Now some people will argue that they don't qualify as terror attacks because they happened towards the end of the Second World War. Therefore it was a battle within the war. They will also say that it was America's rightful revenge on Japan for the 1941 Pearl Harbor attack. Therefore it's not terrorism. But these arguments don't hold any water. World War II was almost over when the plot to bomb Japan was hatched. So the attacks were unnecessary. And killing innocent civilians in Hiroshima and Nagasaki can't be rightful revenge for Pearl Harbor. So here's the root of the problem. The Americans carried out the greatest terrorist attacks of all time, but they cannot be called terrorists. Why? Because they are the ones who decide who should be called a terrorist. The worldview you have today is the worldview that the US empire wants you to know. The US and its gigantic PR machine decides which attack is terrorism and which attack is a bombing. The American PR machine sometimes criticizes the US empire's actions, but it does that in a very subtle way. Take some examples. According to Western media, the Hiroshima-Nagasaki terror attacks were bombings. America's terror campaign in Iraq was an invasion. American terrorism in Afghanistan was a military occupation. US-led terrorist activities against socialist governments in South America are covert operations. And US-led financial terrorism against countries like Iran and Russia are called economic sanctions. So the word terrorism is never used whenever the White House, the Pentagon, the State Department and the CIA are the culprits. That honor is reserved only for countries and organizations that don't obey America. It's all about the jugglery of words, shaping the narrative through wordplay. Here's an interesting story. There was a time when the American press used to project Osama bin Laden as a warrior. Why? Because US intelligence was using him in Afghanistan as a pawn to chase the Soviets away. Many years later, when Al Qaeda carried out the 9/11 attacks, the same US media called Laden a most wanted terrorist. The attacks on Japan are unpardonable. America's own National Park Service gives a detailed account of the Hiroshima blast on its website. It says, the temperature near the blast site reached 2980 degrees Celsius. The sky seemed to explode. Birds ignited in midair. People over 2 miles away burst into crumbling cinders. Others with raw skin hanging around their hips leaped, shrieking into waterways to escape the heat. Men without feet stumbled about on the charred stumps of their ankles. Women without jaws screamed incoherently for help. Bodies described as boiled octopuses littered the destroyed streets. Children, tongues swollen with thirst, pushed floating corpses aside to soothe their scalded throats with bloody river water. This description of Hiroshima shortly after the nuclear blast sums up the intensity of American terrorism. The question is, how long will the US get away with the jugglery of words? Will they continue to fool all of us all the time? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more such special reports. Remember to press the bell icon so that you get notified whenever we publish a report. You can also visit empirediaries.com and check out our new look website for news you are not shown. Stay tuned, stay informed.